The myth of Srebrenica only became a reality in the eyes of the world because of the ICTY. The spurious verdicts of this illegal court were paraded as proof that what had been alleged was true and established fact. It couldn't be further from the truth. The tribunal was a political tool.
Radovan Karadzic and Ratko Mladic, both accused, are charged with genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes.
Proof of its prejudice lay in the fact that all of its indictments were issued before any evidence had been gathered to back the charges. No prior independent professional investigative process had taken place. That's why the UN detention unit found in 2008 that defendants spent an average of 5 years in custody while the court struggled to make a case against them. For Slobodan Milosevic, it was fully 7 years between his indictment and his death, which even then was only mid-trial. Justice delayed is justice denied. The reason for delay was obvious. The tribunal had enormous difficulty in finding conclusive evidence. Even after 2.5 years and 350 witnesses, Jeffrey Nice QC, lead prosecutor in the Milosevic case, admitted he was still struggling. He believed that securing convictions could only be guaranteed by calling on a vast range of victim testimony.
Do you want to put 49? 49?
If you've got 80,000 people being deported, how many witnesses do you need? The judges, it may be, only want or need enough evidence to enable them to make a conclusion that they're happy with. The victims want the story to be told. If you only prove one spot in Bosnia or one spot in Croatia, you never prove the widespread and systematic nature of the campaign, which is what these trials is about. We have recently, and quite specifically, effectively invited the judges to look at this and to indicate, have we got enough? Because there's no test. Is it 10 villages? Is it 4 municipalities? Or is it 1? I don't know. And if I put on too little, then the case fails.
From all of what I have said and what I saw, I could come to the conclusion that this was extremely well organized. It was systematic killing.
The effort to make the evidence fit the indictment was a case of never mind the quality, feel the width. At one stage, Nice contemplated calling over 1,000 witnesses. At that point, even the tribunal judges had to tell him enough was enough.
Sorry to interrupt you. If you have 47 municipalities, the question is, why do you need to present evidence from the 47? Why can't you present evidence from a half of that or a third of that?
The statistics show, and this is why we have in mind a time limit, a proposal to call over 1,000 witnesses. No trial can take place in those circumstances.
I'm certainly not here to get a genocide conviction at all costs. Far more important is that we get verdicts, one way or another, on this indictment that will stand a close scrutiny over a long period of time by lawyers and non-lawyers alike.
The prosecution had a strange way of going about it. Their star witness in the attempt to prove genocide at Srebrenica was Dražen Ademović, a Croatian mercenary and self-confessed killer.
I feel sorry for all the victims in the former Bosnia and Herzegovina, regardless of their nationality. I have lost many very good friends.
He'd been previously judged by the tribunal to be mentally unfit to stand trial himself. Ademović had fought on all sides in the civil war, and yet despite his certified mental instability, he was chosen as the key prosecution witness in numerous high-profile cases, including those of Milosevic and Mladic. Ademović had confessed to killing at least 70 Muslims in Srebrenica. He claimed to be one of an 8-man execution squad that shot dead 1,200 Muslim men in cold blood in the space of just 5 hours. But his account was never corroborated. Inexplicably, the court made no attempt to apprehend his 7 accomplice killers, even though their names and addresses were public knowledge. And so, incredibly, the entire case for genocide largely rested on the confused and contradictory testimony of one highly unstable individual. When Milosevic challenged his written statement that men of all ethnicities had taken part in the shootings and asked him directly whether he'd seen or heard any Serbians at the time, Adamovic had to admit that he hadn't. As in every case before the ICTY, the vast majority of evidence was based simply on hearsay and endless uncorroborated testimony from anonymous eyewitnesses. There was no hard, verifiable evidence. Both the prosecution and defence were denied access to primary forensic and DNA evidence. Transcripts of alleged interceptions of Bosnian Serb military communications were deemed admissible even though no one could produce the original recordings. The tribunal's apparent mountain of evidence was little more than a handful of dust. No proof was ever produced of a Greater Serbia policy or of Serbian genocide. All its sentences are therefore unsound and unsafe. They won't survive scrutiny or the test of time.
Ratko Mladic finally faced judgment in The Hague, defiant until the end. The Mladic case was the last chance prosecutors had to prove genocide had been committed there.
The judgment is pretty predictable, conservative, and takes us no further, really, than people knew from good journalism at the end of the 1995s.
The ICTY was a moral outrage, an illegal court that systematically subverted justice for political ends. It was guilty of the ultimate hypocrisy, not out to find the truth, but create a credible lie, the old Nazi trick, a lie so big that everyone would believe it. If history is anything to go by, it does not judge such conduct kindly.